I want the world record. I don't want to compete. I don't want to take part. Like, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to write down what it takes to get the world record, and I'm going to try and do that. So I ran 16:03 this year, and the goal in a couple of weeks again in London is to go sub 16. I first got into running when I was 11, and trust me, it was not cool back then. I'd get, the window wound down and run, Forest, run. At the end of that 5 weeks, I got a silver European medal. I was full-time work. I'd never made a GB vest, and I was 27 years old. So, everyone was like, "Oof, who's this?" I'm Holly Archer, an elite runner, a former professional, and a European silver medalist over 1,500 meters. But now currently dabbling with a few bits on the road, and transitioning from kind of pro lifestyle to trying to maintain that pro lifestyle and kind of then going to the next chapter of my life. So yeah, it's a good time at the moment, a lot of change. So yeah.
Take me back then all the way to kind of your superheroes have these, don't they? Kind of like how they become a superhero story. And I feel like yours is how you became a runner is very cool. Like, there's a disgruntled lad that I want to say thank you to, and I'll let you tell the story because it's a brilliant one.
Yeah, I've said this on a few podcasts, and everybody always asks, any runner, how did you get into running? And as of late, I feel like a lot of people have got into running from COVID, and it's a kind of a new fad. But I just want to roll back the time capsule and say I got into running in the early 2000s, so it's not something that's recent to me. So I used to run I first got into running when I was 11. And trust me, it was not cool back then. I'd get, the window wound down and run, Forest, run, and my nickname in school was Runner Bean. So, it wasn't cool back then, but yeah, I got back into running, because I couldn't really find a sport in school that I was enjoying or good at. Far too competitive for anything with females. Nothing against females, but I came from a school, where sport wasn't cool, and staying in the locker room and avoiding any of that was far more cooler. So I was one of the only girls that really enjoyed sport. I loved double PE. That was my favorite time of the school calendar. We had double PE on a Friday. I tried hockey, got put with the boys, didn't really work out. Tried to do netball with the girls. Again, I was doing all of the jobs. I was too competitive for any sport that I got put into. And then we did cross country. And we always started cross country on the first part of the double PE. And I'd never ran before. I was wearing plimp soles. I was 11. It was year 6. And the gun went off. Our PE teacher said, right, it was back when you were allowed to go off premises. So nowadays, I'm pretty sure you have to stay on the school field, but we would go around the rugby pitches, around this pond, around a school estate and back in. And it felt like 5K or 6K. It felt like a really long way back in the time. I want to go back and kind of measure it, but I'm pretty sure it's really teared down and the school doesn't even exist anymore. But it probably was 2 or 3K. It wasn't that long or far of running. But we started with the guys. So it was that moment where everyone sets off, and at that age, everyone just hammers it. Like, you're running a full out 200 meters and then everyone dwindles off really quickly. And I went for it. I was like, I'm going to go with the guys. Like, go on, I'm going to go for it and see what happens. And I was kind of in 10th or 11th. We went round this tree line, round the back of the school sheds, out of sight. And then I started picking off the guys, and then the guys with the, hands on their knees, and they're getting wind. And I was like, I'm good. I'm actually good. And I was in 4th for most of the way. And I overtook a guy who you were referring to. He used to play football for the school. And I overtook him and finished 4th. And I was ecstatic with myself. I was like, this is good. Never ran before. Pretty happy with that. Came 4th overall. Only 3 guys beat me. Finished the race. I was like, okay, I'm going to do this again. Excited for the next one in 2 weeks' time. And I got called up in front of everybody after, when everyone had finished. I chatted to the girls and all my friends, and then when everyone finished, we got in our year lines, and oh, your class group lines, and I got called to the front, and I was like, I'm gonna get like, I don't know, someone's gonna say well done, like getting over it. I don't know, someone's gonna give me a round of applause. I was kind of getting red and nervous, and I didn't. I got a detention. Um, so yeah, at that age, I was mortified. I couldn't really understand what was going on, but the PE teacher gave me a detention and said, like, I am setting an example to everybody else for what happens when you cheat. So what had happened is the guy who had overtaken had said that I cheated, and now there is a corner block where you can take out like a housing estate. And obviously he just told the teacher, like she'd cheated. I don't think he meant harm by it, but what had happened is I got a detention and just started bawling my eyes out. And to this day, I still can't. I've asked my dad so many times, like, what was the process of it? But he doesn't remember, like, clear as day, because it wasn't affecting him; it affected me. But I went into that locker room and I cried, and I remember I couldn't get a detention because I lived in a village. So if I got a detention, I'd miss my bus. So I was mortified because I got a detention, which meant my parents find out if I get a detention. So I got a detention. My parents found out. The next thing I remember is being in a car with my dad and him asking me, like, did you cheat? Because I was really upset. If you'd done something, you're kind of like, oh, guilty. But I think I was really upset. And he was like, did you do it? And I said, no, I didn't do it. And he said, look at me. And I looked at him in the eyes. I said, I didn't do it. And the next thing I know is we were at a running shop. And I remember we going down these stairs. It was like down, all the shoes are at the bottom. I'm pretty sure maybe it was in Cambridge where I lived or somewhere. I can't remember. I remember going downstairs and looking at all these running shoes. And he bought me my first pair of ASIC gels. And then we signed up to my first local running club. And I trained for 2 weeks, and he trained me up, and he said, right, you're going to go back and you're going to get fourth again. But I'm going to tell the teacher this time to stand at the corner where you cheated. And so he did. And, I went, and I was so excited to race. The day before, I remember, I don't know if it was a mental game or the 2 weeks of training with my club. Like at that young age, you do gain quite quickly, like in terms of form and fitness. Like the level of progression when you're young is drastic. So I think I got quite fit in 2 weeks, but also, it was that mental edge, like it fueled me. So on the night before that, most people aren't thinking about it, but I had my kit laid out and my strategy all laid out in my head. And I remember absolutely going for it. And I think I came second. There was only one guy that beat me. And this time I looked at the teacher at the end, and he knew and I knew. And then I got an award in assembly, and going from that point, I then won every single county championship cross country in my county, also in the East. I think I was like 8-time Suffolk champion, and the rest is history. So didn't really lose many races after that as a junior in my area. So yeah, I do owe him a big thank you, I guess.
I love the image of you doing a flat lay before flat lays are everything on Instagram. Yeah. Just like before lying out, ready to go, like carb loaded for a school race. Brilliant.
Yeah, honestly, I think I did sit-ups in bed as well. Like I made sure I did sit-ups the night before. Like, I'm gonna get really fit, and like the night before a race.
Rocky music playing. When did you kind of like? Because you mentioned then it kind of spiraled from there. You went on to win county cross country for 8 years in a row. Was there a point though that you kind of realised, hey, I'm actually pretty good at this? Was it when that was happening, or was it when you were going away to represent your county elsewhere? Like there must have been a moment you thought, I'm actually pretty good at this and there could be something in this.
Yeah, I think, anything we're really good at, we hold on to, whether that's, if you're good at English or if you're good at writing or whatever it is, like early on when we're good at something, we hold on to it. And I didn't find anything that I was very good at until running. So running was that one thing where you got praised younger and you just held on to it. And I'll be honest, no, I don't think I thought I could turn it into a career or be extremely good at it at any age. I just think, I was county champion and I wasn't going to not keep winning. As a kid, that's all we want, right? We just want to win. Like, you don't really think too far about it. But I won locally, but to be fair, I didn't win anything at English schools or at a national level. So I was never English schools champion, which is obviously the best in the country at a school level. I was always top 10, but so I was always there and thereabout, but I was never the top dog. And I think that's so important to look back at as well, because kids always, ask me for advice, and they give up because they've never won. But technically I didn't win in the nation, but I never gave up. And that consistency over 8 years of a junior, I didn't win English schools, I wasn't the best in the country ever, I never got a medal. Even sometimes I don't even think I made the 1500-meter heat final at English schools. So I was never the best, but the fact that I was there or thereabout, I enjoyed it, and I was good locally, so I held on to that. But no, I don't think I ever got to a point where I'm like, oh, I'm really good at this, I'm gonna make a career out of it. And my dad always, when I was going to uni, I was adamant that I'm gonna go to the US. I just wanted to experience that environment, and I wanted to obviously not have student debt. I was the year where it went up with student debt as well, so I was like, if I can get this for free, I'm going to go. So I went at 18 to the US, and again, the intention there wasn't to come out of that pro. The intention was to enjoy school, get a good degree, and see how far I can take my running with the most help I could possibly get. And even after uni, I graduated and then went into full-time work. So the intention wasn't to turn pro or make a career out of it ever. I think the only time I really felt like I could make a career out of it was when I became the national champion in 1500 as a senior in 2020 and 2021. When you're winning your national title at a senior level, like that's kind of like, okay, there's something here clearly, like maybe you should push on and just see how far you can go and give it the pro lifestyle. So that was probably when I was like, right, okay, now I want to make some teams, was when I first became a national champion. Yeah.
Was that we'll go back to the US because I do want to talk about that, but as we're talking about kind of the national champion portion of this, was that then a weird decision to have to make yourself? Because I know you were passionate about your work and what you do on a day-to-day basis, to then kind of have this, people sniffing around, people thinking, oh, maybe we could sign Holly here, maybe there are some pro contracts on the table. For you personally, how do you make that decision? Because your whole life you've been like, right, I'm running because I love to run, I'm running because I'd like to go to the US and get a degree, I'm running because potentially I could be national champion here. You're not really looking at kind of the outside. So what was that like when that decision did have to be made?
Yeah, do you know what, that even now I'm questioning whether it was the right decision. Even now, because when I was working full time, I was in a company. So interesting, I didn't get approached by any contract or any funding or any brand. I approached my own company. I was working for a pharmaceutical company. I was like, how I look at things is, I'm that person that looks at things, okay, I don't look at the impossible. I look at, okay, how do I get there? So I've always like looked at things of, I'm working full time, but how do I make the Olympics? And the one thing that kept coming into my head was, I'm not at altitude. That it wasn't that I'm working full time. I thought, I have the talent, I have the fitness, I have the group, I have the surroundings, I have the right people around me. I just don't have altitude. Because you look at them, the pros, or you look at anyone better than you, and you think, how do I get there? What are they doing that I'm not? And it kept coming down to, they go on altitude camps, they go on training camps. That's the only difference that I put together. So I went to my CEO, my line manager, and the owner of my company, and I said, look, like, I'm national champion. I think I can take this further. Will you support me if I wear your, Cycle Pharmaceuticals gear? And, would you help fund me? And, would you help fund me by letting me train at altitude and work remotely with a different time difference, but still all the hours, do everything that I normally do? And they agreed to it. So I had to write out exactly what I needed financially, which was flights, accommodation, and a car rental. And I had to write out my hours of work that I'd be doing, what hours I'd be getting up, when I'd be available. And I just really clearly wrote out my like job description with my line manager, and she said that just make sure you get this done on these days, just crack on. So I did that. I got up at 4 a.m. in the US, and I started doing that. So I didn't actually get approached by a brand. I stayed in what I was doing and stayed with what was working. And just went to altitude with a group of people that were gonna like help me get to that next step. And of course it worked. Like I did 5 weeks in Flagstaff with old college friends, people that I knew. I jumped in with professionals, started running high mileage. I got up at 4 a.m. I worked from 5 till 9. I ran with everybody at 9. I came back at lunchtime, had lunch, did work, had a nap, did work, went back to bed at like 7 or 8. And I did that for 5 weeks and kind of cut off the world and just focused on that. And, it was intense, but at the end of it, I got a silver medal. At the end of that 5 weeks, I got a silver European medal. I was full-time work. I never made a GB best, and I was 27 years old. So, everyone was like, "Oof, who's this?" And then even I was like, not expecting it. I was like, I just wanted to make a team, and then I just wanted to make the final. And then when I had done that, I was like, well, I'm in the final. I might as well go for a medal now. And I think I was gutted that I didn't even get the gold after that. I was like, God damn it. Like I got the gold in the bag. So I think, things snowballed. And then the decision happened. Then it was tough because then I had the medal. Then the Olympics was now the next goal. And I was finding deadlines harder and the pressure's harder and expectations now harder, because now it's not like, oh, just make a team. It's like, no, you're a European medalist now. Like, what's your next move? How are you going to keep stepping this up? So I stayed in work again throughout trying to make the Olympic team. I missed the Olympics by points of a second. I was ranked top, and I just had to come top 3 in the UK, and unfortunately I came 4th that day. But I obviously it's a sad story, but at the end of the day, like if you'd rolled the time back like a year ago, that would not have been even in mention. So I'm so proud of everything I'd done, and I tried, and obviously I just wasn't good enough for that year. But then that's when I signed afterwards. And to answer your question, I spoke to my work and I said, look, I've now been offered a contract with a brand and I don't know whether to take it or not. And I actually was so close with my work that I asked for their advice. I was like, what do I do? Like there's a guy that I work, the director, and he runs, and he's really good. And he was always the one that encouraged me at work. And they saw me running at lunchtime and after work, and they saw what I did on the weekend. They saw that, this wasn't a hobby. And they were just like, take it. Like, it's 2 years of your life, take it. And give it a go. Which meant if I signed the contract, you can't work, because you're signing a contract to say that you're professionally running for that brand and that is your job. So your whole soul is with them. So what races you do, the schedule you do, what you post, who you train with, they own you in a sense. And I didn't think about it at that point. You have to move location, you have to train with that group, you have to do their training. You lose a bit of freedom, you lose a bit of like your purpose and why. At this point I didn't know. I was like, contract, let's go, this is exciting, level up. I thought it was the best thing I could do, and as a runner, right, that's the dream, to turn pro. So of course I'm glad I did it. I am glad I did it, but I don't know if it was the right thing to do, because I've done 4 years of full-time work and handled it and needed that side of my life as well. And I don't think it was that. I think in full-time work, these people had supported me as a person, as Holly, like without knowing anything to do with running. They funded me and backed me, and every time I came into the office, that asked questions, and they thought I was brilliant. And then when you go into the pro world, like it's just a given, everything's a given, like nothing's impressive, oh, well done, you raced and came, whatever. Like no one asks questions. It's just, that's what's expected of you. In fact, it's like, well, why didn't you win? So the attitude switched but the funding obviously hadn't. So I found myself in a pro world where I didn't know if I was supported like as Holly, but I was supported as a pro runner. Um, so yeah.
Where's your head at with all of that now? Because that's like, obviously it's been such a journey to get to the point you're at, and the contracts happened, you know, back
Mhm.
solo doing your thing. How do you feel towards those 2 years now, and how do
Yeah,
you
it's
look
interesting. It
forward?
changes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's changed a lot. I think, as time goes on, we reflect differently. And at the time, I honestly didn't know how I was feeling. I just thought I wasn't good enough, and I didn't know why things weren't clicking. Like, how can you sign a contract with a brand and have all this help and then actually not progress in performance wise? I wasn't progressing. So that's the biggest red flag for me. But like, I stuck in it for 2 years because I was like, okay, maybe it just takes time and change and whatnot. Um, and reflecting from it, I'm not angry. You can't be angry at making decisions, especially decisions that like it could have worked out brilliantly. It could have, I could have gone to a different pro group. Who knows? Like, just one bad experience doesn't mean that it would have happened the same place. If I'd gone to a different brand, let's say in a different country, like with different altitude, let's say on in Switzerland, or if I'd gone to somewhere else, it may have worked perfectly because it may have been about the support and the group and that bit that I care about. But I think I didn't analyze how important it is for me to have a support system around me that really cares um, about me, not about performance. So looking back, my head is at like, I don't regret anything, but I am now like proud to own the fact that it didn't work. Whereas before I might be like, oh, I was pro, like, but now I'm just like, no, I was pro, but it didn't work, and that's okay. Like, you tried. Um, but I think my head's at now. It's like it's a learning curve, and I learned a lot about myself. Like, it's very important that I surround myself and do things that I want to do for me. Like, if I want to do a race, I will do it and put my own pressures on me, have my own goals, and I know how good I am and what's good and what's bad for me. And that's no one else is going to know that unless you know me and what. So now pressures are as hard and as strong as I make them. And that way I can control how I feel about things. And I think that's an important thing that I didn't consider. And I can then help other people as well. That's another thing, like with training, I really like helping running with groups and other people. And, I don't like to keep myself and do really hard sessions solo. Like, I like to just be around people and push other people as well. And that's a big important thing to me. So I think where my head's at is I don't regret it. I see it as a learning curve. It could have worked in a different time of my life or with a different group of people, but unfortunately on this occasion it didn't work. So I've come back to a place where I'm still running the same I did when I was pro right now. Like, I'm still hitting the same times.
I just want to touch on America quickly.
Yep.
Talk me through the experience out in Texas.
Yeah, so obviously different world. I was 18, so I feel like when we're 18, we're a little bit naive to the world. So we just kind of like, oh, this is new, but you're not really phased at 18. So yeah, I went out at 18 and did the whole American experience, and Texas, different world. Yeah, I went to a private school as well, and I've never really had that kind of level of education, and the money that was thrown at this, that everything was mind blowing. Even like the canteen was not a canteen. It was like 5 star, like, food, and we buzzed in with a pass, and everything was paid for. Cryo sauna therapy at 18, which we're talking 15 years ago, not 15 years ago, but like in that, nowadays people are just kind of like, oh, I got cryotherapy, and it's like, yeah, we had it weekly in our school. Like, downstairs we had acupuncture, we had needling, we had ice baths, we had contrast baths. I got like massage whenever I wanted. We had planes just fly us to races. And I don't think I ever really fully appreciated, like, what they were doing for us. But it did, one thing it did do is it enabled me to understand that world and kind of just like process through it. Okay, like, so when I did turn pro, like getting on a plane and going to a hotel and doing the pre-race routine didn't faze me because of the college system. I think, you know, we were constantly flying to different counties, flying to different places, different pressures, different people. Um, and I think like I did that for 5 years along with my studying. So that just it enabled me to have that work-life balance quite early on. And you know, I enjoyed it for that reason. But yeah, America, yeah, it's a different place. You know, they do their sports properly over there, that's for sure, especially in college. You know, it's just not something we do in the UK. Bucks or British universities isn't streamed, you know, nationally on TV. We don't get hyped for the last football game of the season against colleges. We don't get hyped for like the top basketball games. Like we don't even get hyped for like the athletics or the running at all. But in the US, like, you know, March Madness, because the guys get recruited to then go to pro. So it's very important that everyone takes focus and notes like the good college kids, because they're gonna be then, you know, which NFL draft are they gonna go to? Which like NBA draft are they gonna go to? So it's an important process for everyone to watch. I think like university and college sports is more watched than pro sports over there. Like March Madness is just that, and all of that money goes to colleges because, you know, that's streaming of colleges. So that money then goes into college sports. So that's then what pays for me, you know. So it is quite cool, you know, because they're putting sport in to youngsters, and they're put by making use of the money that's going on to the what people want to see. So yeah, it's a pretty cool system.
I remember going out to Boston, and we went to see a college game. I can't remember which college it was, but it was in Boston, so it would have been one of them in Boston. And then
Yeah,
coming back to uni, and I was playing quite a lot of rugby at the time. And the game of American football in Boston, I think there was 45,000 people there. I came
it's
back
mad.
and played a Bucks game, and I think there was about 250 maybe. I'm like, this is insane. Like, it's
Yeah,
just so different, isn't it?
yeah, like our campus, our school campus, like our college campus had like 65,000 like seats for our football game. But then the basketball game, our basketball system, like our team where I was mega. You know, we had one of the best coaches in the NCAA, so we had a really successful basketball team. And they'd pack the house out, and it would just be like how cool it was on what are you doing on a Wednesday night? Oh, let's go watch the basketball. Let's just walk from our dorm. Oh, what are you doing Saturday? Let's go on pre-game and watch the football. Like that's down on the end of the street as well. Like, and you know, you have a track at literally every corner in America. Like a running track is at every high school, every college school. I think in Dallas, in the area, if we couldn't get on our track for whatever reason, once we had the Mexico, no, we had Argentina national team on our track because they were playing in Dallas, so we couldn't go on the track. But there was about I want to say 15 tracks in a mile radius, like from college. Think about colleges, high schools. Every high school has a track because there's a high school system there. Because if you're good in high school, you get recruited to college. So every high school has a track. Every college has a track, and then you have neighborhood tracks as well. So the 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 facilities over there are just incredible. And you know, you think about it here where I am, I don't know where you are. In London it's different because I know you've got probably, let's say, 10 tracks within, you know, 5 mile radius. But wherever you are, think about it, there's only one track in a whole like town.
Yeah, I think I can think of maybe two in 15 miles, maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but then if you think about all the colleges and all the high schools that are in your town, if every single one of them had a track, that changes things for like public access and, you know, just the sport as well. Because sometimes people just don't go on a track because they can't get on a track, or they don't know how to get on a track, or it's booked out in an evening, or they don't know if they have to pay, or, you know, there's so many things. So that's interesting as well because I like how accessible and how, you know, convenient tracks are all over the country in America, whereas they're not that accessible at the moment in the UK, which is a shame.
let's talk about like post-pro contracts, where you are now. What are the goals? Where are you going? What do you want to do? And even HYROX is entering the conversation.
Yeah, yeah. Look, we have to touch on that. Okay, so as of January, I've just kind of given myself some space. I think, as my character, I like to jump into things real hot. I like to have a goal. I like to have a very big goal, and I like to like really focus and like go after it. But in January, I did have the goal just to get back to fitness and try and make Paris, and it didn't happen. I realized how important it is to have a big group around you and be in the top like environment, and I just wasn't in that environment, and time caught up with me, and I don't think I believed that I could make it towards April and May, which is fine. But for the last 6 months I've just been kind of like, right, okay, don't jump into anything now, because I think for the last 5 years I've jumped into things where it's been a pro contract, a job, trying to get the Olympic standard, whatever it is. I've just really jumped into things, and I think for the last 6 months I've just gone, okay, let's just tone it back a bit and just kind of like what makes you happy, and kind of like find a level ground. And I think that level ground is right where I am now. I think it has taken 6 months, but I actually feel like now I'm very content, and things are starting to click, and they're starting to click because mentally I'm like in a good place with being where I am. So I am focusing on training, and I'm now back to trying to get sub 16. When I'm sub 16, I've only ever gone 15:50 even when I was pro. So I ran 16:03 this year, and the goal in a couple of weeks again in London is to go sub 16. So I've got these goals that I think I can achieve without being a pro. I think I can achieve these by training and doing what I'm currently doing. So they're realistic goals around me that will make me happy based upon my talent, my performance. I should be able to do this. Like, and that's what fulfills me, right? It's not like what fulfills you is reaching your potential. And I think my potential is sub 16 without all the frills of pro. So that's what I want to do. And then I also wanted to make a couple of teams still, and I have just made, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say this, depends when you release this, but I have made the Copenhagen half marathon team for Team England. So I got a vest, and to get a vest for England without being pro, and just it's I've done it before. It's not a big thing, but when I got the email, I was like, oh, that's cool. And then I reminded myself, hang on a minute, Holly, like, when you first ever represented England, how like ecstatic you were, and now I'm like, it's all right. And I think I've had to tone myself back and have a talk to myself and be like, actually, no, that's incredible. Like, stop trying to outdo yourself all the time. I think once we hit a PB and we hit a marker in our lives, like we just strive for more. And I think sometimes it's okay to just be content with like, yeah, I've represented England before, no big deal for me, but actually no, it's a big deal. Like, you've gone through way more now, you're a lot older, you've had way more things happen to you, and you're still there, so I think making a team, getting back to sub 16, and then I do want to find a job now. I obviously coach, but now I think I'm ready to go back into full-time work, but I want to make sure that job's right for me. So I've learned a lot of experience in running, so I think it has to be around running, but I'm not sure what I want to do yet with marketing and like pharmaceutical background. Like, I don't want to just waste my head as well, and like my personality. I feel like I have a really good personality for the sport, so I want to make sure it's right job, but I'm not in no pressure for that. So looking to the future, it's get back to sub 16, represent England, get a job that I feel like has got me to this point in life, not just a job to make do. Like, okay, with everything you've learned, everybody what I read a quote somewhere some days, and it said, if you could earn the same amount of money in every single job in the world, what would it be? So if everything paid exactly the same, and that turns out, what's your passion? So what would you do every single day with your time? So I think I've been thinking about that, and it is obviously around running. It's not around, oh, this earns well and this does well. So I want to find the right job. And then lastly, to touch on it, is HYROX. So it's a new
just a few
sport.
things. Just a few things.
Yeah. And honestly, being who I am, I thought about this 4 weeks ago. I thought about it for a long time. So HYROX is 8K of running. You run 1K and then you do a station. You run 1K and you do a station. Now, all the stations aren't like technically hard. They are physically hard, but you do need to have an element of like muscular strength. What I mean is, like, you know, if you've ever done an 800-meter or a 5K, you fill with lactic, and that's muscular strength almost. So when people say they don't have a kick or they don't have speed, it's not. It's just you haven't trained your muscular strength. You haven't worked on your lactic and your muscle endurance. And my whole life, I feel like with 800 and 1500-meter training, I'm quite familiar with that feeling of that lactic burn. And when I started training for HYROX, doing some stations, coming off like a sled push or lunges, that feeling, like when you finish your last burpee going into a 1K run, is very similar to like the last time straight of an 800 or a 1500. So it got me thinking, but I haven't been able to pursue HYROX because I've been in a pro contract. So it isn't till December really that I've gone, well, I could actually try for that. But because I wanted to get back to 1500-meter and 5K and gave that a good shot, it didn't really enter my mindset until the last couple of weeks, not weeks, maybe months. So I picked one, the next one I could find that I could get a singles in, which happens to be South Africa. There's none in the UK, they're all full.
What a shame. What a shame.
So I'm going to South Africa in 4 weeks' time. I'm going in September on my own, and I want the world record. I don't want to compete. I don't want to take part. Like, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to write down what it takes to get the world record, and I'm going to try and do that. Again, I like to give me these outrageous goals, and sometimes I don't hit them and break my own heart, but given the 50% of it is running, and I know I can do it, and the rest is stuff that is new to me. I've been really working on that, and I do genuinely think I would be close to a world record. Whether I get it or not on the first time out would be sensational. I get that, and I'm being very naive and not respecting a new sport as much as I should. But knowing my personality and like the work I've put behind it as of now, I do think I will get close. So yeah, I'm going to go after the world record, and I just want to see if my body type, my mentality would suit it, because if it does, then I'll do more, and maybe that's a new venture for me. But it's just this itch that I need to scratch, you know? And so yeah, I'm gonna go and do that. I have written down everything I need to do in terms of like splits for every like exercise and run, plus like transition time, things you don't like consider. And I am doing that Copenhagen half marathon the week before, so it's gonna be a fast turnaround. But yeah, I'm not gonna properly send the Copenhagen marathon. I'm gonna kind of try and run within my limit for that and try and negative split. So I'm gonna try and run Copenhagen like intentionally slow first start and wind it up so I finish not on an empty tank. And then I want to go to really send it in South Africa, and I've really been enjoying that, to put my mindset on something new that I might be good at, and setting goals high and just seeing where I land. So yeah, I'm starting to do that.